Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1557. I am reading from Henning Morales' book today. I don't know if he pronounces his last name that way, but I think it sounds nice. A novel by Henning Morales, The Dirt Merchants, a novel, a coming of age story, a triumph, a true story. I think I got, a coming of age adventure. I got that one. Okay, so we are on page 24. Brandon looks scared. What happened to you? Spencer snapped. I didn't mean it, man. I was scared. I didn't mean it. I was scared. It was obvious that Brandon's guilt and fear had kept him all night as well. He was incoherent. Didn't mean what? Snap out of it, Spencer responded, confused. Brandon didn't talk. Adrenaline took over. Spencer started to shake Brandon. Tell me, bro. The rest of the crew were in as much anticipation as Spencer. The second bell rang. No one budged. They were the only ones left in the schoolyard. Then the scared black kid told the white ones and the brown one the whole story. He began with the crash. Then the guns pointed it at his mouth, then the squealing. Calmly, Spencer the dirt and looked up at the sky. At least two to pick him up, probably embarrass him, and drag him right out of the classroom. But why didn't they pick me up last night? How is Mom going to react? What about Pops? What about the damage to the car? Man, I was scared, man. The gun was in my mouth. Brandon was hysterical. The other kids were amazed that this kind of thing could happen. In our town, drawn guns, threats of death, raids of houses in the middle of the night. It was only a joyride, for God's sake. Spencer was too engrossed with his own issue to comfort or empathize with Brandon. It wasn't something that these kids did anyway. They all remained silent for a few minutes, the girls just shy of tears. Spencer broke the silence. Forget it, man. Let's get to class. We'll deal with this later. They all walked slowly toward the school, no one saying a word. They didn't notice the unmarked detective's car pull up behind the hot dog truck as they entered the school. Ooh. Chapter 4. Bridge over troubled water. Hold on while I have a coughing fit. I'm about to have a coughing fit, and I don't know where I put my last liquid. Hold on 1 second while I have a coughing fit. This is Yin Yang about to have a coughing fit. Right about to have a coughing fit. Right here, right now. Mhm. Don't know if I solved that problem yet. Right about to have a coughing fit. Right, hair in my mouth. Ugh, that's probably the reason. Ugh, boy. Ugh, ugh. That's what it was. It was hair. It was my own hair. Somehow, when I was brushing my hair, something came out of the root and went into my throat. I nearly had a coughing fit. What do they do when these reporters on TV, when these anchor people on TV have the same problem? Do they just go like, do they have some kind of a sign or a button they press under their table that says, get to a different shot? You know, what do they do? That was like so awful. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, well, I'm back now. Bridge over troubled water. Oh, by the way, let me say my good mornings. Good morning, good morning. Good day to everybody who is in my time zone. Good morning. Good day to everybody who is in Europa. And there is an evening sound in Asia and Australia. Australia. Bridge over troubled water. A few hours later. The crew always met at lunch break at the tables by their door, no exceptions. The gang was scattered around the table area by the time Spencer got there. Some were standing, some were sitting, some were smoking, and some were eating. Spencer was wiped out. He couldn't think about anything except getting busted. The others were just making small talk and picking on each other as teenagers do when they're nervous and anxious. Do you see the detective car over there? Anthony asked the others. We know it's there, Suzanne snapped. We don't know it's here for Spencer. They don't have any proof. Just the word of a scared kid with a record, Joe said. Maybe they'll leave it alone. The others looked at Joe suspiciously. He was always making jokes, but it seemed odd that he said it so seriously. He was never serious. Spencer was getting extra attention today. Although he was exhausted and legitimately concerned, deep down he liked the attention. Recently, he was going farther and farther out on a limb to get attention, any kind of attention. There's Devereaux again, Eric pointed out, biting into an ice cream on a stick. He is still messed up, man. Tell him to forget about it already, Spence. What? Spencer responded, daydreaming. Come on, man, snap out of it. Devereaux over there, said Eric, throwing the stick at Spencer. Chris Devereaux was a good-looking, well-scrubbed, athletic kid with a Laird Hamilton blonde haircut. The kid that's short in the back, the kind that's short in the back and long in the front. The kind that the kind a kid flicks back with a throw of the head. He was 1 year older than Spencer's crew and captain of the wrestling team. A total jock and a seriously nice guy in a sea of jerks, show-offs, and troublemakers. He walked up to the group. Hey, Spence, I heard what happened, man. I'm so sorry, kid. He said it with a sad face, as sincere as any kid could be. He seemed genuinely affected by all of this. The cops ain't gonna pick you up, man. Hey, I'm really sorry, man, for everything. Devera, you're a good kid. We like you, even though you're 100% tightwad jock, Spencer responded, trying to make him smile. Joe was his sarcastic self again. He was chuckling, and the others started laughing, everyone except for Spencer. Joe scolded, the guy already told you to forget about it. Forget about it, man. Forget about it, man. He started to jump up and down and point at Devereaux. He began to whine like a spoiled child. Forget it, man. We know you can't, but try. The kids started to go off on Devereaux. They went the way they always did to kids who were being too nice, goody two shoes. Suzanne chimed in. Chris, why do you come over here looking for punishment? Leave it alone. What do you want from us? Spencer didn't speak. No one spoke. Time froze for a moment as all the kids just looked at Joe. His piercing blue eyes and freckles accentuated the intense scowl on his face. It was pure evil. They knew what was coming. 2 years earlier, in the winter of 1980, Spencer had to choose between wrestling and basketball. How do I get baseball in high school? Basketball. Spencer's friends on the basketball team, mostly black, always said he was crazy, that he was going to get himself killed wrestling. But he knew what he was doing. He had never wrestled, but wanted badly to get into an exclusive club. Joe, Anthony, Eric, and Adam had lived near each other, so were a lot closer growing up. He couldn't believe how cute the girls were in that clique. Going out for wrestling was the one way to finally prove that he belonged with their group. By wrestling, he would now be one of the boys, a crowd of white bread that wasn't quick to accept a brown kid into their Valhalla of popularity, coolness, and pretty girls. It was a group he knew he could and would break into and eventually lead. Not only that, because the two junior high schools would compete, wrestling also gave the kids exposure to the best girls at both Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson junior high schools. Being one of the boys became his magnificent obsession. His strategy was working. First, fit in, then stand out, then become the leader. Although he'd never wrestled, he felt he was enough of an athlete and strong enough to learn it quickly. He hit the wrestling tryouts, made the team, and picked it up in about the third practice. He began competing against and beating kids that had been wrestling since they were little kids. Spencer developed a strong bond with the others in the group during the wrestling season. They were all on the wrestling team, even Anthony, who wasn't athletic and wouldn't hurt a fly. They were the team. Anthony was the lightest weight. Anthony was in the lightest weight class, followed by Adam. Third was Eric, then Spencer, then Joe, and finally Jimmy was the heaviest of the bunch. They took the team deep into the state championship. The wrestling stands were now more populated than basketball for the first time in the school's history. They became the world they became the most popular kids in school. In the spring of 81, although Spencer was arguably the best tennis player in his age bracket, another sport that he picked up as a teenager, all the boys were on the basketball team. Spencer chose baseball instead of tennis, and the bonds with the crew and his popularity were strengthened. He led the team in home runs. 5 of the 6 were part of the summer all-star baseball team that went on to win the New Jersey State Championship. After baseball season, the crew shocked the school by shaving their heads. On the first day of summer, the pack brought mopeds. What? On the first day of summer, the pack bought mopeds. They cruised around on their mopeds all summer, shooting pool, crashing parties at older kids' houses, and terrorizing the rent-a-cops at Fairleigh Dickinson University's Teaneck campus. I like that. Not only did the 6 kids somehow convince their parents to fork over $500 for these already dangerous motor vehicles, they paid their 18-year-old friend, Pete Holding, a 20 to disable their governors, allowing the bikes that were made to travel 25 miles per hour to cruise at 50 miles per hour. Wow. There were, something, I actually paid somebody a 20 to do the inside and the outside of my car, 20 inside, 20 outside, and I gave him a 20 tip. So it was basically 30 on inside, 30 on the outside. And it was a good job. It was a really good job. You never know. I mean, if you have a neighbor that's willing to do it for you, if you see him doing it for somebody else, ask him how much it's going to be. And guess what? It might be really little money to do for you. And meantime, you get something done. I just made sure I didn't give him the key. I gave him the key, but I didn't unlock the lock I had on the steering wheel to the brake. So I left it locked. There were numerous crashes, injuries, and hospitalizations. Spencer, while riding his moped with Brandon's sister Loretta on the back, crashed into a sand trap on the Teaneck Municipal Golf Course, burning Loretta's leg on the tailpipe, creating a permanent 8-inch scar. Joe crashed headfirst and lost half the skin on his face then it got grafted back on. Oh my God. For cash that summer, Spencer found kids at bus stops and offered them rides to their destination on his moped for $1. He also scored when he bought and sold concert tickets for Van Halen, Lin, Lin, Leonard Skinnerd, and Billy Joel. I had never known Leonard Skinnerd was spelled that way. Adam and Spencer frequently went into the city to see bands at the Ritz and CBGB's to experience the new thing called punk rock. Eh. Over time, Spencer became the protector. He was the toughest of the bunch, even though Jimmy was the biggest and they were all athletes. Because Jimmy was so big and had a BB gun collection, he already had the intimidation factor going for him, so he rarely got into fights. Not so for Spencer. He got into a number of chivalrous brawls on their behalf or bequest. If anyone would disrespect his crew, he would get in their face. Brandon was always instigating. He would tell all his black friends about Spencer's fights and even sicked him on kids from time to time. Spencer would never back down. It was pseudo hypnosis and definitely an auto response. Somehow they all survived and were as close friends could get, as close as friends could get. Spencer's friends were his life. He would do anything for their approval and for his newfound popularity. Sports gave him both a way to connect with his friends and a way to stay out of trouble, at least out of major trouble. By the time these kids got to high school, they were experienced athletes, clubbers, drivers, ladies' men, and had plenty of cash. Entering the 10th grade, none of the boys went out for any fall sport. All were planning for wrestling season. 3 months earlier, Tuesday, November 2nd, 1981, sophomore wrestling practice. Devero and Corrales, you guys take it easy. This is only warm-ups. Coach Wolf of the Teaneck High School wrestling team was strutting through the high school gym covered with wrestling mats and 12 duos scrimmaging on the floor. The gym had the usual stench of sweat, body odor, and dirt from the mats. Wolf was barking orders and blowing his whistle. The other kids had gone to wrestling schools, camps, and leagues. Spencer had never been in any type of organized wrestling program when he started the year. He was the talk of the school when the only brown kid on the team with no wrestling experience became undefeated with a perfect 8 match winning streak against kids that had been bred to wrestle. His strategy was simple: never get pinned. If you don't get pinned, you can tough it out and win with points. He became an expert at the bridge move. The bridge involves pushing up from your back using your head and legs and throwing the other guy's body off you quickly. There were exercises that would strengthen the neck muscles. Spencer focused on those exercises to avoid pins and became a master at the bridge in a few weeks. By his second year, his neck was a bulging 16 and a half inches from all the bridging exercises, huge for a 129-pound kid. The cardinal rule with the bridge is never bridge when the opponent has you in a headlock. If you do, you risk neck or back injury. Spencer's thought process was simple. Don't get suckered into a headlock. Chris was a full 2 weight classes above Spencer, but they were paired up in practice anyway. Coach figured Spencer could learn from the captain of the team and would never back down. They began sparring with the usual moves of slamming and squirming. Chris was good, but couldn't get Spencer pinned. Spencer hung in there the best he could, learning what the other guy was doing by experiencing it on the receiving end. They joked back and forth. Chris about Spencer's no pin policy, and Spencer about the super jock that couldn't get the job done with a kid 20 pounds lighter and a year younger. Chris noticed that Spencer was bridging a lot and was doing his best to get Spencer into a headlock, but with no luck. This went on for a good 45 minutes. You're too nice of a guy, Devera. You don't have the killer instinct, Spencer said, puffing and smiling. Very funny, Corrales, Devero snapped back, laughing as he slammed Spencer down again. Quiet, you two. Focus. Coach was barking at everyone as he did his walkthrough. Chris had Spencer just about pinned in a headlock. Spencer was doomed. The pin was inevitable. Even though it was only practice, even though it was against the captain of the team, the best wrestler on the team, even though Chris was in the 149-pound weight class, Spencer's training wouldn't let it happen. He immediately went into the bridge move, knowing the move was the wrong move if you valued your body or your life. Spencer began to bridge out of the pin, and Chris held him tight, not even letting Spencer try. One, Chris yelled out so everyone could hear. Two, you're mine, sucker. Before Chris could get to three, Spencer, with all the strength he had in both legs, pushed off in one jerk. Instantaneously, he heard the slightest crack coming from his lower back. The next instant, he felt pain shoot up from his lower spine all the way up his spine to his neck. It was as if a giant needle the size of a baseball bat was shoved up his back through to his skull. His scream was horrifying. Ah! Spencer squealed at the top of his lungs. If death had a sound, this would be it. The whole gym froze as Chris immediately released Spencer when he heard the scream and look of terror on Spencer's face. Help me, man! The pain! Spencer screamed, crying. The entire team came bolting over. Running also were the three students who had been walking by the gym and the janitor. Joe and Jimmy pulled Chris off Spencer, and now they could all see his face. Only his head was moving. The rest of his body was limp. He was lying on his back, screaming at the top of his lungs. Usually pain hits the body, and while the body reacts initially, eventually it calms down. Not this time. Don't move him! I'll be right back, commanded Coach Wolf before sprinting to his office to call 911. The other kids were staring at Spencer, watching him scream in agony, while Chris sat on the floor with his head in his hands. Jimmy, Joe, and Eric were closest to Spencer, terrified. The rest of the team just stood over the body, staring. The hardest part was the helplessness. It was shocking for people to see this tough guy crying and bawling like a baby before feeding time. The screams filled the gym until the ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. By now, there were at least 70 people in the gym, including faculty, staff, and the crew's girls who had heard the commotion and had come running over from their door. Some were crying, some weeping, and the rest just stood there, stunned and helpless. Broken neck? Broken back? Paralyzed? What a waste! Somebody do something! When the screams sounded as if they couldn't get any louder, there was one final mega scream that was louder and more penetrating than the others as the paramedics placed Spencer on the stretcher. As he screamed, so did the crowd that had assembled. All the girls were crying. Suddenly there was silence. The pain and shock were too much. He passed out as the last strap was buckled and the stretcher was lifted into the ambulance. The paramedics jumped in, slammed the doors, and sped off to Holy Name Hospital. That's really fast. Because usually ambulances take a long time to assemble everything. But this one was different. And also, not only that, but when a person is screaming at the top of their lungs, that's a 10 out of 10 in pain. And that's why I say I've never been at a 10 out of 10. I've only ever been in a 9 out of 10 because I wasn't about to pass out. So that's a lot of pain. Spencer's mother and father were at the hospital in an hour to meet with the diagnosing physician. So, we're at a very exciting juncture of this story. We're at the hospital with Spencer in the hospital from an injury. This is close to the end of chapter 4, and we will continue with this next week. I'm moving the Henry Morales book from Monday to Sunday. So instead of 7 days, we'll see this story again in 6 days. So that'll help with the suspense, okay? It was good to see you all, and I hope you have a great day. My goal is to inspire you to have a great day and hope to inspire you and entertain a little, impart a little bit of good knowledge. Hopefully, you learned something good to do today. Don't get locked into anyway, yeah, just do what you got to do today. Okay? Old Kinderhook. Bye bye.